to Wellesbourne Mountford airfield. I'm sitting in a Cessna 152 at the South Warwickshire Flying School, and I'm going to try and do 3 circuits in order to regain my currency. Basically, in order to carry passengers, I have to complete a minimum of 3 takeoffs and landings within the last 90 days. So let's see how I go on. I've already done a walk around of the aircraft, checked it's got 2 of everything, tested the external lights, lowered the flaps so we can check the linkages, and also refilled it with fuel and tested the oil. So let's see how we go now with the checklist. Seats adjusted and locked, harnesses adjusted and secure, doors closed and latched, instruments look okay, radios and electrics are off, circuit breakers are all in, cabin air and heat closed, mixture, test for full and free movement, and then set fully rich. Throttle, loosen the friction control, again check for full and free movement and leave it about 1/4 of an inch in. Carburet heat, check for full and free and leave cold. Flying controls, aileron, elevator and rudder. At this stage I will also test the mechanical trim, because the sim has got electric trim, that won't work without the battery, so let's assume that's been done. Put the beacon on, and now to the second page of the checklist. Fuel shut-off valve is on, keys are in, primer, the engine's cold, so we'll give it about 3 strokes of the primer. Battery half of the switch, the low voltage lights come on, brakes are on, lookout, clear prop, and ignition. Okay, and then increase the engine revs to about 1200 revs. Check the oil, pressure is okay, fine, it's cold, and put the alternator on. And the low voltage light's gone out and we're charging, so that's good. Right, okay, headsets on, radio on, and tuned to Wellesbourne Mountford 124.3030. Second radio we're not going to use, but I put it on, and put the transponder to standby. Suction is registering, gyroscopes are now active, and the attitude indicator has leveled, so that's good. Flaps now we've put up in stages. We test them as they go up to make sure they go up symmetrically. Instruments now are reading sensible values except the altimeter, which needs altering now back to QFE, which means we're measuring height above the aerodrome level. If we were leaving the aerodrome, then we would set it to QNH, which is the altitude above sea level. Okay, so that's everything okay. Circuit breakers are in. So make a call now. Wellesbourne traffic, Golf Bravo Whiskey November Bravo at the South Warwickshire Flying School, taxiing to holding point Alpha for runway 18, right hand circuit. Okay, brakes off, and let's go forward. As we enter the taxiway, then we check that the DI is turning bank is registering, but the attitude indicator is level. That's correct. And then we do a quick check of the brakes. Toe brakes are working, and now we'll go well past the Vulcan and swing into wind. Okay, clear behind. Okay, so put it up to 1200 revs, check the brakes are holding. Yep, and then up to 1700 revs. carburetor heat, and as expected we see a slight dip. That's not too important. What we are looking for is what the revs return to after we put it back to go. And they've gone back to the same value. Now if they go into a higher value, that means we had some ice in the carburetor, but that's now been melted. So that's just a check of carburetor ice. Now we're going to magnetos. The aircraft's got two magnetos. We need to check that it will run on either one of them. The way we do that is to switch off the other. There is also usually a slight drop. It shouldn't be more than 125 revs per minute, and there shouldn't be more than about 50 revs between the two. Now bring the throttle back to idle. It should idle between 500 and 700 revs. The simulator is running a bit fast, which means it's difficult to taxi. Back up to 1200. Check the section is registering, that's fine. Okay, so now we do the final pre-takeoff checks. Fuel is on and sufficient. Trimmer is set to takeoff. Flaps are up. Mixture is rich. Throttle friction. And now set that. Carburetor heat we'll leave till later. Magnetos are both on. Master switches are both on. Primer is locked. Some gyros are not reading sensible values. We'll check the DI when we get on to the runway. Radio nav aids is tuned to Wellesbourne 124.030. We're not going to use any nav aids today. Doors, windows and harnesses are secure. Flying control again, a quick check. Fine. Anti-collision lights. Now we'll put the strobes on, and we'll also put the landing lights on. Transponder will turn to halt. Okay, pitot heat we don't need. Right, so then we'll continue the turn now. Checking if we can for any aircraft that might be on final or even base leg. Run a bit closer to the hold and then put the brakes on. Back to 1200. Wellesbourne traffic, Golf Bravo, Whiskey November Bravo, holding Alpha, runway 18. Wellesbourne traffic, Golf Bravo, Whiskey November Bravo is entering 18. Okay, right, we'll check that the DI is aligned to the runway 18, that's correct. Okay, so let's go. Full throttle. Full revs, good. T's and P's in the green. Airspeed is alive. 55 knots, pull back on the stick and rotate. And climb out at about 65 to 70 knots. Safe height and positive rate, so FEL, flaps are up, engine T's and P's are in the green, and the landing light will leave on because it's a bit murky out there today. Okay, I'm actually following this flight on my Skydiver moving map display so I can see where we are in the circuit. But we'll continue the flying straight out to about 800 feet when I know that we're well past the village of Loxley. We can start then the gentle turn to the right. Seem to have drifted off to the left a bit. Just pull it back. Okay, we'll commence the turn now to the right, no more than 15 degrees in the climb. We're coming up to 1,000 feet, that's no problem, we'll just level off now at that. Let the speed build up to roll out onto heading west. And the speed's now 90 knots, so we'll throttle back to about 2,200 revs, which gives us more or less straight level flight, hopefully. We'll just adjust the trim. It is quite murky out there, isn't it? Good. Alright, now we can do the turn onto the downwind leg. Wasn't quite as bad as this when I did it for real, so it's quite a good trial, this. Rolling out onto north. And there's the runway off to the right, so that's always a good thing to spot. Right, that's pretty well straight level, I think. So we'll do the downwind bumpy checks now. Brakes off, underground ridge down, mixture rich, fuel on and sufficient for a go around if we need it. Flaps are up, instruments are set, and we'll apply the carburetor heat for a few seconds. And off. Wellesbourne traffic, Golf Bravo Whiskey November Bravo, downwind, runway 18 right hand for a touch and go. Seem to have dropped down a little bit, we'll just pull it back up onto the correct altitude. Or height, should I say, because we're on QFE. Right, my moving map says that we're about a beam with Hampton Lucy, so now we can apply carburetor heat, throttle back to about 1500 revs. And commence the turn to the right. At the same time, I usually apply 2 stages of flaps. And everything's right, we should do about 65 knots, which is fine. Now this is quite a long way downwind to get round Hampton Lucy, so we do actually turn a little bit in towards the runway rather than doing a direct easterly course. We can see the runways over there, so that's good news. Might as well just try and trim it a little bit for 65 knots, which is the ideal. That's about right. Okay, we can now commence the turn on to final. And put full state flaps in at this stage. Golf Bravo Whiskey November Bravo, final 18, touch and go. So we're a little bit slow, so we'll put the nose down a bit and increase the revs to the rest of the rate of descent. So remember, pitch affects the speed and throttle affects the rate of descent. So now we've got one red, one white, so that's ideal. Good. Pretty well on spot on here. Speed's dropping off a bit, that's fine. We want to cross the threshold at about 55 knots, so we're doing fine. And as we come over the threshold, then we throttle right back, and then flare, and we're down. Flaps up. carburetor heat cold, and then full revs. And again we'll go around for a second go. And this time I'm going to try a flopless approach, which simulates what you'd have to do if your flat motor failed for any reason. Flopless approach tends to be flatter and faster, usually about 70 knots. To allow for that to happen, we usually extend the downwind leg by another 15 seconds or so, just to give us a bit more room. Okay, we're pretty well past Loxley now, so we'll commence the turn now. To the crosswind leg. Coming out onto west and reduce throttle to about 2,200 revs again. And then we'll turn on to downwind. And roll out onto north. Okay, brakes off, undercarriage down, mixture rich, fuel on sufficient, flaps up, instruments check, carburetor heat hot. And cold. Bravo Whiskey November Bravo, downwind right, 18 right hand for a flapless approach. So same procedure, throttle back to 1500 revs and then commence the turn, but don't put any flaps down. We've still got a bit further to go. Okay, we're at beam Hampton Lucy now. This is where we normally start the turn. I'll just go another 15 seconds or so further downwind. Right, throttle back to 1500, carburetor heat on, commence the turn. And this time we do actually need to trim for a slower approach. All the way around, there we are. Okay, we'll do the turn now to final. And there's a runway, just about visible. It's a bit murky. Right, so you can see we're actually quite a bit lower. We're doing about 17 knots. Golf Bravo Whiskey November Bravo, final, touch and go. Red now. Because the attitude of the aircraft is different without flaps, so it's actually more difficult to see over the nose of the runway. Now another thing is that the aircraft will tend to float before we touch down, so we'll probably go a lot further down the runway before we actually make contact. Got a little bit high there, so I'll just throttle right back, that's better. Okay, and now we ease back, it's floating. Not so bad in a 152, but low wings float a lot in the PA-28. Okay. Oops, sorry about that. And full throttle. Good. That's two circuits done. Right, for the next circuit then we'll try the infamous engine off approach. So we're halfway down the downwind leg, but I'll cut the throttle and we'll see if we can make it back to the runway. Right, we're past Loxley, so we'll do the turn to the right, continue the climb. Level off. And roll out. Throttle back to about 2,200. To adjust the trim again because I've altered it for the Flopless Approach. And now do a turn onto downwind. Roll out. Okay, usual trim. Tests, brakes off, undercarriage down, mixture rich, fuel on sufficient, flaps are up, instruments okay, and carb heat on, and we'll leave it on this time. Golf Bravo Whiskey November Bravo, downwind simulating engine failure, making a flapless approach. Okay, so we'll just leave it a little bit longer before we make the cut. Okay, we'll cut the throttle now. The main thing is to pull back and turn immediately towards the runway. Don't want to waste any time on that. 65 knots is the ideal glide slope. Anything faster or slower actually is worse in terms of rate of descent. So there's the runway. We're going to know that I'm not using any flaps, because a flap, although it increases the lift, will also increase the drag even worse. So the best glide to rate ratio is flapless. Right, and there's the runway. So now we can start to make a very easy turn onto the runway. Golf November Bravo, turning final to land. Okay, watching the speed, it doesn't go off too much. That's fine, we're absolutely fine. We're going to be quite a long way down the runway, but that doesn't matter at all. Now we can do the final turn, and we're quite high, so we'll put now a couple of stages of flaps in. Oops. And we're down. Apply brakes, and we'll come off at runway 23. Carb heat up, flaps up. Golf November Bravo, runway vacated. Well, not the best landing ever, but it got us down safely. I do like the scenery, very, very magnificent now, it really is superb. Right, just going to taxi a bit too fast if we're not careful. So at this stage now I will turn off put the transponder back to standby. Oops, can't do two things at once. Turn off the strobes and turn off the landing light. There we are. Let's slow down a bit. There's the museum over to the left. Passing the Touchdown Cafe. A bit cold for anybody today. Obviously Jonathan's in the tower. So why isn't he answering my calls? Quite a few aircraft around. Actually, in real life, a lot of them have been put away for the winter, but simulators showing them up really well now. Nothing parked on Bravo though. In real life, there's quite a number of aircraft on Bravo. There's John Richards' twin, there's Citation, just on the northern side of the Bravo taxiway. Okay, and the Vulcan's looking really, really good now. Just the perfect size, absolutely perfect. South Warwickshire Flying School on the left. One aircraft parked. We'll park on this side of it. We normally park facing south, but I don't suppose it really matters. Swing wind. And we'll park next to that one. Brakes on. Okay, so now we need to just do the shutdowns tests. So what we do is we increase the revs to about 1700 to clear the plugs, leave it there for a few seconds. Whilst we're doing that, we'll turn off the radios. And the transponder. And then back to 1200. And mixture fully lean to kill the engine. Switches off. And the beacon off. And that's it. So thanks for watching, and see you again next time. Bye for now.